Hey, what's up, Urban Mystics? It's Unique Divination, and this is my first official training on my new platform. This is going to be how to create a jar spell. A lot of you guys have been asking, and I wanted to get a workshop together. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go live, so I'm going to test this out. Please let me know what you think because we can do live comments, okay? All right, so let's get into it. How to create a jar spell. Jar spells, also known as bottle spells or other container spells, are an old form of folk magic. While this form of magic is mostly found in cursing and curse breaking, it's not just for baneful magic. The hoodoo honey jar spell, for example, is common in love magic. The jar spell can be used for a variety of spells, and you can customize it as well. How many of you currently work with jar spells or had someone do one for you? All right, so how to cast the jar spell or bottle spell in 7 steps. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to define what your intent is. What is the purpose of this jar spell? What are you aiming to do? Are you hexing? Are you cursing? Are you trying to sweet somebody up to you? Do you want to separate somebody from your energy field? Are you trying to return the sender some negative energy that someone has presented to you? Are you trying to bind someone? Number 2, you need to select a container to use. Okay, I recommend glass. All right, we'll get into that later on. Number 3, you want to choose the contents of your jar. 4, you want to fill your jar with ingredients specific to your goals. 5, you want to seal the jar. 6, you want to meditate on your intent. 7, you want to finish your spell. You can also cast your spell according to magical timing, meaning casting on a certain day of the week or by a certain planetary hour. This is all up to you and your own preference. Step 1, define your intent. The first and most logical step in a jar spell is to define your intent. Your intent is what everything in your spell will revolve around. As per usual with magic, your intent should be, number 1, you need to be specific. Focus on precise goals. No wishing, no generalizing, no multi-purpose spells for 12 different things. Okay, one spell should go in one jar. Okay, be realistic. Make sure those goals are attainable. No Dungeons and Dragons or Harry Potter fantasy stuff. Okay. A lot of people like say we doing a money spell, money jar, and somebody wants $1 million in 2 weeks. Like, is that actually attainable? Because I think we forget that even with magic, there still has to be some type of action that aligns with what it is you're trying to manifest. Okay. Next, is it ethical? I'm not going to say what is or isn't ethical, but you should certainly consider your spiritual ethics and think about the consequences of your actions. Now, for me, this really doesn't apply. I look at karma completely different from a lot of people. I don't feel like karma is, you do something bad and it comes back to you. Karma is consequences regardless. Every action, there's going to be a ripple effect. That is karma. All right, so that's not for me to judge. If you're squeamish with magic and you're of the love and light, then I recommend that you stay away from things that would be like the dark arts, like banishing or hexing or return to sender. Because if you have that on your mind that, karma is going to come to you, then it's probably not going to work for you. Okay, so just focus on doing sweeteners and all that other stuff. If you're built for it, just don't do it. All right, once your intent is determined, you can begin to design your jar spell, namely what kind of things you need to put into it to achieve your goal. Step 2, you need to choose a container for your jar spell. Basically, any kind of container that can be used for a spell. Any kind of container can be used for a spell. I have to admit up front that I'm not entirely comfortable using containers made of plastic, but opinions vary on its effectiveness. I prefer glass, though people use clay and other materials. As long as it has no cracks and a tight-fitting lid or cork, you're good to go. To find a suitable bottle, scrounge around the house or at thrift shops. Consider using anything from mason jars, baby food jars, and mayo or pickle jars to old salad and oil bottles. Make sure you cleanse and consecrate your jars before you use them. And so I've used pretty much the majority of those glass jars that I've just described. Mason jars. I haven't used baby food jars because I don't have a baby. Mayo and pickle jars. I've cleaned them out, consecrated them, and used them. They work well. Okay. Paint your jar. It's optional. If you want, you can paint your jar in a color that corresponds with your intent or with symbols. I use sigils. Okay. Also, images. This is not necessary, but any little help can give you a boost. Plus, it keeps anyone who might stumble upon your jar from seeing the contents if you live with people who may not be accepting of your practice, or if you just don't want people to know what you got going on. So, I definitely recommend layering magic. I layer my magic, it makes it stronger. So, if you want to add a picture, sigils, images, I recommend that you do. Step 3, choosing your jar spell contents. Deciding on the contents is basically the meat of this magical working. While there is no limit to what you can choose to include, it's important to select things that correspond to what you're trying to manifest. For example, if you're creating a money jar, you can add actual money, coins, herbs, and oils that are associated with money. For instance, patchouli is a herb that's associated with money. Cinnamon is also associated with money. Bay leaves are associated with money. A photograph, hair, nail clippings, blood, or other personal items are crucial to your spell. You could also use a name written on paper. This should be of the person you are casting the spell on. So if you're casting it for yourself, you'd use your own picture, item, or name. If casting the spell for a friend or on someone else, such as a spell to get a bully to leave you alone, you would use their photo, name, or item. Now, depending on how strong your magic is, sometimes you don't need a photo, you don't need a picture, you don't need anything. If you can visualize the person in your mind, then I feel like it can be done. I myself have done it before, and I've known other practitioners that didn't have a name, they just had a target and they had a visual of the person, they knew what the person looked like, and that was good enough to achieve their goal. So it all depends on how strong you are in your practice. All right. There is a lot of power in words, so I always find it helpful to write my intent on something and slip it in the jar. If you're seeking the aid of a deity in your jar spell, you can write a note to them asking for your assistance. Make sure you are not using language like hope, wish, pray for, want, or need. All right. The universe speaks in definitives, like absolutes. Like, we don't need you hoping and wishing and praying for it, because the universe is going to continue to allow you to hope, wish, and pray. You need to claim what you're trying to achieve is already in the process of happening. Okay. You need to make sure you're speaking in present tense when writing intention statements. The universe is very particular when it comes to intention statements. You say what you want. You say you want something instead of claiming it, you would just continue to want. All right. Generally, the bottle should contain some liquid, but which liquid you choose depends on your intent. Urine is used for protection jars and jars to break a curse, but can also be used for manipulative spells over others. Vinegar is used to curse or harm others or to spoil something. Safety note: vinegar jars can explode, so don't fill it to the top and keep the jar wrapped in cloth or towels. All right, honey, sugar water, or some kind of nectar is used when you want to compel someone or something. This is because if you were seeking to make friends, to be more persuasive, to soothe over hurt feelings, you'd want to sweeten their disposition. Ammonia is used for cleansing when you want to banish negativity or malevolent entities, or when you wish to start anew with a clean slate. Also, ammonia is good for reversal spells as well. I should have added that in here. All right, safety note: never burn candles on ammonia and do not place ammonia jars near heat, as it can be explosive and flammable. I highly recommend that if you're doing a reversal spell and you use ammonia, that you cover up your jar in a cloth and put it in a dark, cool place, all right, until you're ready to dispose of the jar. Tinctures, infusions, oils, etc. can be used for a multitude of purposes, such as blessings for health or prosperity and the like. Naturally, you should choose something based on your intent. For example, a money spell might include a tincture, infusion oil, or infusion or oil made from money drawing herbs like cinnamon or mint. Water can be used, but I really don't recommend plain water. At the very least, you can make an herbal infusion with it to give it more of a boost. I personally think heavily salted and blessed water can be good for purification purposes, but beyond that, I would avoid plain tap water. You can also do water that's charged by the full moon or the new moon, right? Like with liquids, there are different types of solids that you can choose from based on your intent. You can be pretty creative with this. Here are a few examples. To break a curse, jar spells usually include items like rusty nails and glass shards. To break up a couple, the caster might add some cat hair and some dog hair to the mix to make the people fight like cats and dogs. Again, think about your own ethics. If you're not built for it, then I would recommend not doing it. Heart-shaped glitter or confetti might go into a jar spell to draw love. You might even tie a ribbon around the whole jar to hold on to love or to bind someone. In a money-related jar spell, you might include some coins. I put paper money. If I wanted to break writer's block, I might make a jar spell with a small pencil and a roll of paper wrapped around it. Two items that are both magically powerful and easy to come by are crystals and herbs. You can find a variety of them anywhere, and they are able to carry the energy that you'll want to put into your spell. I highly recommend studying up and familiarizing yourself with some basic herbs and or crystals you might have access to. The more you work with herbs and crystals and get a feel for them, the more skilled you'll become in your spellcraft. At the end of the day, just use your head and think of things that give off the kind of energy you're interested in raising. They'll be even better for your spell if they're personally meaningful to you versus only using items that are commonly associated with your goal. Remember, just as you cleansed and consecrated your jar spell, so you must do with the items that you plan to fill it with. If the objects you've chosen are not spiritually clean, your spell will be less likely to help attain your goal. After having grounded and centered yourself, pick up an item at one item at a time and charge it. Charging empowers the item with your personal intent while stirring and stimulating the item's own natural energy that you're trying to tap into. You do not need to cast a circle for this spell, but if you wish to do it within a ritual circle, you may. If you wish, you may also invoke a deity for assistance. As you add items to your jar, chant to raise power. For example, while you're filling your jar, you might say something as, by the power of earth, air, fire, and water, by the power of the sun, moon, and stars, with the blessings of the goddess Aphrodite, I charge you rose quartz to attract love to me. All of this is again optional. Do what you feel is right, what you feel in your gut and in your intuition with your spiritual practice, okay? When you're finished filling your jar, you can seal it right away and then burn a candle on it if desired, or you can burn a candle in the open mouth of the jar and seal it that way. Note, candles are not necessary in jar spells, but I find that it adds yet another boost of power if you combine it with candle magic. Again, this is layering magic, all right? If you choose to incorporate a candle into your jar spell, find one of the appropriate colors and dress it before burning it in the mouth of the jar or on top of the seal jar, letting all the wax melt down. You can burn multiple candles on a jar over a course of time for an ongoing project. Um, if you can't find colors to correlate with what you want to do, white is always the go-to color, okay? White represents everything. Step 6, meditate on your intent. Meditate on having acquired your goal. Don't envision yourself wanting your goal, or you leave yourself in a perpetual state of wanting. Envision yourself having your goal. What will life be like? How will you feel when it is done? Hold on to your visualization for about 20 minutes or as long as you can. Step 7, what to do with your jar spell now? There are a few different options now that you've cast your jar spell. Basically, you can bury it, hide it, toss it in water, keep it on your altar, or dismantle it. What you choose depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So, you want to bury the jar if you're seeking permanent protection or to break or repel a curse. This will stand sentry on your property and protect you or on the property of the person for whom you cast a jar spell. If you don't have land of your own, you can bury it in a flower pot of soil left by your doorstep. You want your jar to be a magnet, so to speak, of sorts to continue to draw things to you. Attention, health, wealth, etc. Bury it on your property or the property of the person you're casting for and be done with it. You're trying to rid yourself of something or rid the person you're casting for of something, like a disease or a bad habit. Bury the jar at a crossroads, don't look back, and ideally never return. If you're casting a spell on another unbeknownst to them, bury it on their property, ideally somewhere they cross over every day, like beneath their doorstep. Note, if you're doing some major cursing to harm another, you can bury it in the graveyard. Hide the jar if you want to bury it, but burying it is not an option. I understand you can't bury a jar easily when you live in an apartment. If this is the case, just hide it deep in the home somewhere inside a wall, in the junk closet, or wherever it won't be disturbed. You plan on dismantling it sometime in the future, which will disengage the spell when done properly. Toss the jar in the water if you're using it to banish or exorcise any entities, or if you are working with any left path entities. Running natural water sources will purify it and protect you from their return. You want to toss the jar in the water if it's successfully, I'm tongue tied, removed a curse, a disease, a bad habit, etc. This is an alternative to burying it at a crossroad. Keep in mind, you could be fined for littering if you're just tossing stuff in the local water. Tip: if it floats, puncture the cap with a hole or tie it to a weight. Keep the jar on your altar if your goal is an ongoing one that you'd like to keep working on. You can continue to burn candles over the mouth of the jar or shake it while saying your chant to keep it working for you. I hold on to money jars, the community money jar that I have going right now. I'm going to hold on to it for 30 days, and then I'm going to dispose of it and create another one. All right. Alternatively, if you have a shrine to your god or goddess and sought their aid, you can keep it there. Again, shake it occasionally while chanting to keep the power going. This is actually a good option for spells that are going to require a great deal of time and effort. For example, if you were to do a jar spell to help you pass tests, you might keep it on your altar all through college. You might repeat your chant, burn a candle, or shake it the night before exams. This is better than making a new spell for every exam. Dismantle the jar if the spell's power is no longer necessary and you like the effects to stop. For example, if you cast a jar spell to attract love, you might have had many interests for a while. Now you're getting married and you don't want to attract any more potential lovers, so you would dismantle the spell. To do this, remove the contents and bury them at a crossroads or into running water. Clean the container and dispose of it. With a proper cleansing, you could reuse it. I don't recommend reusing candles. I don't even know why I have that in there. I mean, jars, just get rid of the jar. Warning, it's not generally a good idea to dismantle a jar used for cursing or hexing, or one for breaking a curse or hex. Unless you really know what you're doing, just bury it at the crossroads or in running water and be done with it. Now, if you can't get to the crossroads, I recommend disposing of it in your outside trash can for it to be taken away by the trash. Okay, do not dispose of it in your trash can in your home. Put it outside. All right, do not burn your spell jar. One thing I do not recommend is throwing it into a fire. As is mentioned in some sources, this was in particular a method of cursing and curse breaking. The witch would throw the jar into the fire and it would burst. It meant the curse was working, torturing the person it cast on, or it meant the curse you were lifting has broken. This is not necessary and not a safe option at all. However, if you do dismantle a jar spell and have some components left over, ribbon, paper, you can burn those items after it's dismantled if you have a safe means of doing so. Okay, so this concludes my first video on my new platform, um, how to create a jar spell. Please leave comments below. I will go back and answer any questions or do a part two, um, to kind of support the comments and questions that you guys have, okay? So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope that you guys received the message, and let me know if it benefited and answered any outstanding questions that you may or may not have had, okay? All righty, talk to you later.